What's up, guys? Today I'm going to get into something I usually don't talk about, which is genetics. And I'm starting to make these type of videos where I just talk about something I've read about before, or something I just want to touch on, maybe because there's not enough light being about this topic, spoken about this topic. But yeah, it's not the typical videos I always do, which are vlogs. This is more going to be more of a rant and me just talking about genetics, and if you're going to be the next Mr. Olympia or not. If you want to know if you're going to be the next Mr. Olympia or not, you need to know these two things. You need to know if you're a hyper responder to PEDs or not, and you need to know if your body can tolerate the toxicity that you're going to take, because this sport is all genetics. And if someone told you bodybuilding is sports of genetics, he's not lying to you. It's facts. It is sports of genetics. And it's none of the hard work bullshit, none of that. At first it's genetics, and then once you have the genetics, then we can compare you to someone else who has a hyper-responsive genetic, and we can see who works harder. When you're both at least equally the same when it comes to being a hyper-responder or not to PEDs. And it's crazy to think that many people think they can be the next Mr. Olympia if they only took the drugs, the same dosages that Big Ramy takes. And it's not the case. With even all the drugs, all the training, all the nutrition, you can't even come closer to Big Ramy, and it's simply because genetics. This sport is purely about genetics and none of that. Hard work beats talent. Okay, if you're someone who's natural and you have good natural genetics, okay, and someone else who doesn't have good natural genetics, and both of you took PEDs and he is a hyper responder and you're not, he's going to blow the fuck out of you, even if he's half-assing on his diet and training and not sleeping well. Being a hyper responder is very crucial in this sport, and it's like the trinity of the sport is being a hyper responder and hard worker and all that, mental discipline. And the third thing I would say is, does your body tolerate to the toxicity or not? Because I believe once you start to take PEDs, it's only about time till something happens to your internal organs, or just something happens. And it's all genetics. Someone can be hyper responder, but his internal organs can't take the stress and toxicity that he's putting it into. So you can't complete, like, it will tax your life. This sport is not for everyone. Imagine how many Mr. Olympias we have. We have like 16, 17 in the last 60 years. Okay, it's crazy to think you're one of them, and you're probably not, to be honest. I'm not here, and I'm not here to discourage you. But I don't want the sport to humble you, because if the sport did humble you, you're going to die. This is the only way the sport is going to humble you, or maybe you have like a kidney failure or something serious. And I don't want it to happen to you. I know guys who are 5 cycles deep down, 10 cycles deep down, and they didn't even take their pro card. Okay? They didn't even achieve their pro card. What the fuck are you doing? If from your first cycle, first 1 or 2, maybe even 3 cycles, you didn't take your pro card, then maybe you need to reevaluate everything and think that this sport is not for you. And this sport is very different than the other sports, because if you play football, then it's fine. Even if maybe you don't have the talent, it's fine. But in bodybuilding, you have to have the talent. You have to be genetically blessed. Unless you're going to die trying to reach something that you simply can't, just because you're a hard worker and all that bullshit. Okay, it won't work. Now, if you look at, for example, Phil Heath and the picture with Jay Cutler, where he almost out-angled Jay, and it's crazy to think the difference between their weight is 100 pounds. Phil was 190 and Jay was 290. So 100 pounds difference. And Jay told Phil at that time that you're going to be the next Mr. Olympia, and he did become the next Mr. Olympia, and he dethroned Jay, and he won 7 times. And it's very crazy to think that you might be the next Mr. Olympia. Now, you can never know unless you take your first cycle and you see how fast your body is rating. The faster you're progressing, the better. That means you have a hyper-responder genetics. Basically, you're hyper-responding to PEDs. And you can look at guys who were like twigs, like Kevin Levron, Dennis Wolf, and you can look even like at Phil Heath when he didn't take anything. He was like a twig, and once he took PEDs, he blew up. He blew up insanely. And you can see how many times he won. Once he took PEDs, he blew up everyone out of the regional shows, national shows. I'll pop up a screen. You can see his like competitions and how he won. It was like all first and overall, and it's crazy how insanely these guys are. And they are literally like the 99.9% of the population. Like, these type of guys are 1 in a million. So you thinking you can hang up with them by just taking the same drugs and working hard, it's not going to happen at all. No working hard is going to take you up there. We can take the working hard element when both of you are hyper responders to PEDs, and then we can talk about what did you do peak week, your exercise selections, your training, your diet. But if you're not even a hyper responder, then there's no need to talk about any of the hard work or anything. And the point of this video is, I don't want you to put your health at risk for no reason. Okay? As I said again, from your first cycle, you can know if you're a hyper responder or not by the rate of your physique changing and how does it tolerate the toxicity. You need to do blood tests. You need to have a health protocol, and everything needs to be in check. And that's it. This was my goal. I still don't know if I'm going to be maybe the next Mr. Olympia or not. I still didn't take my first cycle. But I've seen a lot of TikTok bodybuilders who have the dream or aspiration to become the next Mr. Olympia. And you can look at their physique, and now I'm not saying if you're not blessed naturally, then you won't be the next Mr. Olympia. It's not the case at all. You can look at Nick Walker. His natural physique is, if you look at him, you would say that this guy wouldn't even come close to Mr. Olympia. And won his New York Pro. He won the Arnold Classic, and he got like 5th on the Mr. Olympia from his first try. So imagine. And someone like Ronnie Coleman, who took his pro card naturally too. That's insane. These guys are one of a kind, and it's very rare. And to think that it might be you is maybe something you need to be more realistic with yourself. And yeah, that's all. I just wanted to, my point here is not to discourage anyone. If you want to take your pro card, go ahead. If you're a hyper responder, then good for you. Go ahead, and I hope the best for you. But my point here is to be aware and be more realistic with yourself. If you're someone like me who thinks they can be the next Mr. Olympia. For me, I think I will be a hyper responder, just telling from how my natural physique is changing in like a above average rate, I would say. You can see like someone who's like someone like Dorian Yates. You can see at only 9 months of training how he looks. He looks like someone who's been training for 3 to 4 years. So you can see how maybe sometimes if you're naturally with good genetics, then I think the higher the chances of you being a hyper responder to PEDs. And yeah, that's all what I wanted to touch on. I just don't want anyone to put his life at risk and just to think and be delusional about him winning Mr. Olympia when he cannot even win his regional shows or national shows. To me, I think in maybe the next 2 years, I'll be more open about how am I going to use and what's my first cycle basically. But until then, I will be more realistic with myself. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. If you like these type of videos, make sure you comment down below. It's going to help the algorithm, and more people are going to watch this, and they're going to benefit from it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.